Good evening, everyone. Today what we're going to be covering is giving you an update on the product roadmap. I'll just go through the agenda. So today we're covering the roadmap product update. That's the status of where all our event lines are at. We'll be covering off resources and materials. That's from a consultant perspective, and there are some issues around support which we'll be covering off later on. So here's the roadmap for 19 to 20, that's H1 of next year. So to the left-hand side, you'll see that we've got 4 main event lines. So these are the key initiatives that the teams are currently working on. The first one is providing an intuitive reporting solution, and that is to do with the Query Designer. Query Designer is a new tool that we are putting out, which consolidates various tools that are in Greentree at the moment, for example, like Jade Query, Explorer, into making it easier for our customers to be able to develop and design their own reports. I'll cover that off in more detail in the next slide. We have compliance for New Zealand and Australia. That's not really applicable to the UK. And then we have provide a mobility solution. So this is where we currently have a mobility app which is going to be supported, no longer supported from August 2020. So we are going through a process at the moment of determining what that replacement will look like. Lastly, we have delivery of continuous improvement items. The first item you'll see there is the browser customization enablement, and that is where we're providing to our partners the ability, or VADs should I say, the ability to be able to modify or customize forms in the browser. Next to that, we have continuing to provide incremental enhancements from the ideas portal, and the way we actually go through that, we determine what will add value over a short period of time. Down the bottom we have future considerations, and these are areas that we will be looking to implement in end of 2021. To the right hand side we have a key just to indicate when those releases will be coming out, and we do have a release coming up, and that will be 19.3, which is scheduled to be released on this week starting on the 17th of June. So what's happened? With reporting, I mentioned before that we are releasing the Query Designer. What we do is we run what we call an early access program, and that is whereby we allow our partners and customers to be able to gain early access of new features that we are putting out. The whole purpose of having an early access program is so that we get feedback from our customers and partners as to how intuitive it is, any new ideas that come through, and we work through those over a 3 to 4 week period prior to release. The great thing about having customers' involvement is that we do get some really great feedback, which enables us to be able to future roadmap incremental enhancements over the coming releases. We had 5 customers involved in our recent EAP. It was extremely successful, and the feedback that we do get from these EAPs is that it's well worth it, especially if there's some future enhancements that are going to make our customers' life easier. We have compliance, which I mentioned before is only applicable to New Zealand and Australia. Browser customization, as I mentioned before, is that we are going to provide to our VAD partners, and you'll see there I've got value-added partners, and these are our partners that currently can do customizations. We recently, over the last couple of weeks, we had a meeting with all our VAD partners just to run through the enablement piece of allowing our customers to be able to do that development work. So the 4 areas that we covered off was the development process, and that is how they're actually going to manage modifying those forms. Licensing, for those partners that are VADs, there is a current VAD agreement, and that stays status quo. And we also drilled some of the components that are used are used from Censure. So there is a Censure licensing requirement which covers the enablement of being able to edit those forms. Talked about the resources. This is how, what materials we have available. And then the last piece was the timeline of when that will be made available to our VAD partners. So what's next? We have got a release coming up for 19.3. It is due week of the 17th of June, and it'll include the query designer. With this release, just to point out that there will be comprehensive release notes with this, and also videos which Paul Matthews, who works in professional services, does this at the end of each release, or just before the release is to go out. We've got the browser customization, so a couple of things happening with that. For forms to be created in the browser and added to the menu, we need to implement a couple of enhancements which will make the whole process of creating your own forms, adding them to the menu, a lot easier. And you'll see there it's delivery of menu and screen mapping, and the ability to be able to add new menu and workflow panels. Moving on to the mobility. As I mentioned previously, the current Jade platform that our mobility app is running on is no longer supported from August 2020. So what we're doing at the moment is a couple of things have already occurred, is we've spec'd out our current requirements for the functionality that we have at the moment, and we are also looking at a technical review based on the APIs that are in the system. So how this will work is we are looking to use a third-party product that will integrate into Greentree using the APIs. The API review, as I mentioned before, we will be looking at ensuring that it's scalable, we don't have any performance issues, and that there's no security issues with that. The next thing from that, whatever issues come out of that, they will be put into our roadmap and dealt with as a part of the new mobility functionality. The other thing that I may not have mentioned before is that we are also looking at running a what we call a independent software vendor. So these are third-party products. We're looking at setting up a program. With a couple of products that we have within the MYB family, they already have what we call an ISV program. We are looking to leverage off what they have done and implement that within Greentree. What this does is it opens up the market segment for our partners to be able to target different areas, and it means that we've got a lot more value within the Greentree product by extending it using the ISVs. That is currently underway. We have already on our MYB site under Greentree, we have already got some add-ons listed. So what's coming up? Next step to the mobility side of things is we are looking to set up what we call a partner advisory group, and that's where we get our partners involved in looking at the solutions that we're looking at providing for the replacement of the mobility. I know that we have in New Zealand, and Australia, we've had quite a lot of keen input from our partners being able to, or wanting to be a part of that partner advisory group. And I know that potentially Harry and Murray from the UK will be a part of that. We also have the ideas portal, so for the next two quarters, for Q3 and Q4, what we are looking to do is add incremental enhancements from the ideas portal, not major features that span 2 or 3 quarters. Inclusion with that is we are also looking to ensure that we have a fair number of backlog items that are in our backlog included in the Q3 and Q4 releases, and we are also looking to do some platform inclusion as well. That's it from a product perspective. I will hand you over to Paul.
Cool. Thanks, Jean. So for those who don't know me, my name is Paul Matthews. I work in what's called the professional services team at MYOB. So covers a kind of range of areas, but we'll just follow it on the theme of what Jean put up earlier in terms of what has happened, what is next, and what is coming. My list looks a lot shorter than Jean's, but there we go. So in terms of professional services, what's happened? So recently, what I put up here is kind of the bigger pieces of work that has been going on. So what has happened? There was quite a need or requirement, I should say, from several partners to update as well as provide some eDocs videos. The ones that have been produced before were out of date. They had the old UI and in a few instances had simply been mislaid, but they definitely needed updating. It was quite time consuming, as you can appreciate, but they're getting there. So on the Salesforce discussion, if you go in there on a regular basis, you will see that I have put up there just a PDF document, which I've updated a couple of times because those videos are just uploaded to a generic Greentree YouTube site. So I've put the link up there, and I've also put the times of those videos as well, so you can get a good idea about how long they are. Those videos, as I think I said on the post, they're overview videos, sorry, not detailed setup ones. But it might give you an idea of how they work if you don't know how some of them work. But I guess the key message is those videos are freely available to be shared with prospects as well as customers. There's no pricing or anything, or talk about how the pricing works or anything like that. They're purely kind of functional videos that if you can listen to my dulcet tones for about 15 minutes, then you're fine. Again, any feedback on those is good to know, whether even just a sound kind of quality thing is also good. So just let me know, or if you want more detail on any of them, happy to do that as well. So what's next? So I'm working my way through that list. If you have looked at that list, the last one to do is the expenses. So I'm just working my way through that at the moment. Just have to fit it in with everything else, like everybody does. But that should be available pretty soon. I hate to commit to a date because something always comes along and upsets it. But look, I'm looking at kind of a week. So in terms of a general time, not a month or anything like that, about a week. And then I'm looking at moving on to the reports and documents library. Now, the feedback, all the comments I've heard back is everybody kind of understands, at least in a general way, the way the reports and documents library works. But several partners have come back, or several consultants and partners have come back and said, yeah, it's actually the setup in terms of, I've got an existing site and they want it, or they're looking at it and they've got a temporary license code, but we don't know where to start to set it up. So the focus will be pretty much on the setup of things. So that's what's next. So again, that'll be kind of feeding on. So then what is coming up? So I did put a posting up again on the Salesforce where we put it equivalent to the old blog posts of updating the demo data. That has taken a slight back seat in terms of updating, mainly because I was focusing on the eDoc stuff. I will be back on that. If you've got anything you want to add, feel free. I'm creating this kind of master list of what I'm going to do. And again, any other suggestions for videos, content, etc., just email me, and there is my email address. So you are more than welcome to email me directly. It's not a problem. Part of the professional services role. I work in a team, so I do Greentree. There's people that do advanced. There's people that do EXO. So we work directly with partners, so you're welcome to reach out to me if you've got anything I can assist with. In terms of what has happened in the past, before the eDoc stuff, there was some stuff on mobile timesheets and mobile HR that went up. There have been people using that, and there's been a bit of feedback, so those are going to be updated, but hopefully some of this stuff will be kept on a rolling basis in terms of updates and things like that. Yeah, so that's all from me. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover at that stage from a professional services point of view. Again, if you've got just any general questions about professional services, please email me. Hopefully I'm not opening myself up with lots of emails here, but there we go. On the slide that Jean put up with the agenda, there was the last point was support. So the support team lead, Mike Myers, from time to time, he will join the session just with an update as to anything that's going on with support, or maybe if he needs to reinforce some of the processes. Mike does have a bit of a remit to kind of make sure the processes are nice and smooth and tight and everybody understands them. So Mike will be joining the meeting from time to time just to add some content from the support point of view. So I'm now going to stop talking, wrap up, and I'm just going to pass you back to Jean for final comments.
Great, thanks, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for making yourselves available to be a part of this webinar. If there's anything or any questions that you need answered with regards to the product, your first point of contact will be Harry and Murray. And then they'll obviously feed that back to myself and Paul. So thank you, and we'll catch up in the next quarter. Done.